The album Rainbow Riots came about 2 years ago, and it's a kind of idea that I had as a way to tackle discrimination of LGBT people around the world in a creative way. So I kind of thought to myself, how do we deal with this issue that in many parts of the world is still illegal, dangerous to be queer, to be different. So I thought, let's do a creative musical project where I can give voice to all those people that are being silenced out there, that are being tortured and persecuted. So I've basically gone around the world and I've recorded queer voices from some of the world's most dangerous places for LGBT people. And the result is Rainbow Riots.
In hindsight, when you look back at where it all started and the experiences that you've had, and there have been some pretty hairy experiences, some quite shocking things that have happened, which hopefully you'll talk about in this interview. But I think it's good that you're doing it because it is something that needs to be addressed, and I think people need to be reminded of how other people live and how much we take things for granted in countries where it's safer.
So much has happened in such a short time, and people do have the memory of a goldfish, you know. People just don't remember that in our lifetime we've gone from oppression to liberation, you know, and I'm not that old, you know, but in my lifetime I remember growing up and there was a huge stigma and we didn't even have legal rights properly, and we had to, you know, the gay community had to fight for medicine for AIDS, and we've gone through a whole journey, and now we're here and we've got our rights, and people have forgotten the journey and they've forgotten that there's still a lot to be done out there in the world. And I kind of wanted to do something where you approach this issue, which is a very, very complex and difficult issue, but I wanted to approach it in a positive, life-affirming and creative way. And music is a universal language, so I found that it's the best way.
This is a dance album, but it might not be a style that maybe your fans are used to, and people
Totally.
that know of your production as something different. So refreshing in a lot of ways, isn't it?
Yeah, for me it's been a complete departure. I mean, creatively, artistically, and also in my life, you know, it's a new direction. Musically, it's enabled me to kind of experiment a lot more. And of course, I always loved dance music, and I think the power of dance music is so underrated. And the reason that I've been able to connect with artists, vocalists from countries that do not have the same musical history that we do is through dance music, because dance music is a thing that connects people universally all over the world, and that's always going to be my great big love. But in this project I've had a chance to kind of branch out and experiment a lot more. I've worked with poets and we've done spoken word pieces, there's gospel in there and a lot more electronical experimentation, and it's been a real kind of creative departure for me. But also, more importantly, because this isn't just music, it's actually activism, it's taken me down a whole new route in life.
What can you tell us about your experiences in Uganda specifically, and the raid, which just sounds terrifying?
Yeah, I mean, Rainbow Riots has been one hell of a journey, and it's an ongoing journey. And one of the main countries on the album is Uganda. There's also Jamaica, Malawi, South Africa, but Uganda has become one of the biggest countries in terms of the numbers of people involved. Although Uganda is often considered one of the world's most homophobic countries, it's also got a very strong underground LGBT community, and I ended up right in the heart of it. And it's almost like being a resistance movement in a war, where you have to find new, innovative, creative ways to fight against oppression, and it's a fight of life and death, you know. And during the making of this album, a lot of things have happened, and most significantly, last year when we were working on the Rainbow Riots music, we were supposed to perform at Uganda Pride. And now, Uganda Pride has been called the most brave Pride festival in the world, and I must say that it is. Everyone involved, I mean, are just so brave, and they're pioneers. We had a planned stage performance of the Rainbow Riots showcase live, planned for Uganda Pride, and suddenly the police storm in with machine guns, about 30 of them, into the venue. Armed policemen, everyone's screaming, and they're beating people, they're assaulting people, they're arresting several of our collaborators.
What was the first thing that went through your mind when this
Well,
was
this was a few weeks after the Orlando massacre.
Right.
So everyone's mind was and also on stage there had been a tribute to the Orlando victims minutes before the police stormed in. So everyone was thinking about Orlando. We were thinking, are we going to live? Are we going to die? You know, it was a moment where you're sort of actually in the hands of a really brutal force and you have nothing that you can do about it. But in that moment, everything also becomes very clear, and we all held hands, and some people hid the memory cards to the camera over there. Someone took the camera, went there, and we all kind of, you know, and I just saw firsthand what the Ugandan LGBT community goes through on a daily basis, and how that creates a really strong bond with people, and how, you know, all the little things that people squabble over in the Western world, they become obsolete, and you all really stick together and you become a very strong unit.
It makes you realise how things are irrelevant when you go through that experience. Did that experience make you question your decisions to do things like that? Did it make you stronger? Did it make you more, you know, determined to fight against this kind of thing?
In that experience, when we were held hostage for 2 hours, everyone in the venue were held hostage by the policemen with machine guns.
That must have seemed like hours too.
It seemed like a very long time, and it was very quiet because we were ordered down on the floor, and all I could hear was someone sobbing very loudly. And then it later transpired that someone had jumped 4 stories to escape and broken their spine and everything.
Oh,
and in that moment, I looked into a pair of eyes. Everyone was quiet, you know, because we didn't know what was going to happen. And you're in a collective kind of crisis, and it's almost like being on the Titanic or something, where you're just like, okay, we're all here, we don't know whether we're going to live or die. And I looked into a pair of eyes, and it was the saddest eyes I've ever seen. It was like just that moment of looking into a stranger's eyes and just seeing that sadness. I didn't feel fear, I just felt a great sadness. And in that moment, I think it changed my journey and my kind of life in terms of a dedication, where I came out of there and I just felt like, okay, I'm a witness now, you know. When you're in a situation like that and you come out alive and you come out to the other side, you live to tell the tale. And that's what that becomes your mission. So I think, to answer your question, it made me stronger, a lot stronger, and it made the project stronger, and it made us as a group like a very tight family unit. And in that moment, Rainbow Riots became a lot more than just an album.
Did you notice the people that were involved, that were with you, your friends and the artists involved in the album, did they seem different after that experience, or did they seem like it was the usual thing that they go through, that they have to deal with?
I think there was a change in everyone's mood, because I think prior to that incident, there had been a feeling that things are changing in Uganda, because they had been able to stage pride parades for a few years. And I think in that moment, there was a sort of realization that this struggle isn't over. And if anything, this struggle is kind of upping it, you know, upping its game a bit, and we really have to kind of up our game. The morale of people who are constantly fighting for just survival is a very fragile thing, and I think that sort of thing can kill people's spirit. But in our case, I think the fact that we've built a strong network, and there is a really strong, fantastic network of pioneers, I think that becomes a strength, you know, and it becomes the sort of thing where we're not going to give up. And like my Ugandan collaborators say, you know, like it or not, we're here and we're going to stay here. History is always like a pendulum that swings, and it changes and it fluctuates, and it's, you know, it's never constant, and we can never take anything for granted. And I just think my realization with this project, after, you know, after that moment, coming back to Sweden and London, where you kind of realize, yeah, the struggle has been won here for now. We don't know for how long, because if you look at history, equal rights is just a blip, you know. It's not a constant thing for anyone. It's not just LGBT people. If we're talking about, you know, the history of mankind, this is an ongoing thing. And unless we actually sort of all get together and actually sort of say, right, what can we do, then it's not going to change.
Yeah, I should say congratulations, because one of the singles, the first single from the album, Equal Rights, has been picked up by the UN Global Goals campaign. So again, doing great things, putting the message out there.
Yeah, I mean, that to me that's very exciting, because to me that's what drives me on. Where I think, you know, I love uplifting, positive dance music, and I love pop culture, but I also love anything with a message, and I live for social justice and advocacy, you know, for human rights. And I think to combine the two is a really powerful thing. And the fact that Equal Rights is a campaign for the global goals, for the UN's global goals, to me is a very, very exciting thing, because it means that you can actually sort of use a lot of different ways to get the message out there. People aren't going to listen if you preach at them in a really boring way, but if you can make them dance, you might make them listen.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Stockholm Pride, which is coming up. It's Pride season, of course.
I'm so kind of busy organising for Stockholm Pride, because I'll be getting the guest performers over for the Rainbow Riots showcase.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So
that's a job though, isn't it? That's a big job.
One hell of a project, I'll tell you that much. To get the visas, and we haven't been able to get visas for everybody. It's just not possible, because the situation in Uganda is so dire that to get a visa for someone from Uganda who is LGBT, it has proven very difficult.
But you've tried.
We've tried,
yeah,
and we've got visas for some of our performers. So I'm going to stage a Rainbow Riots showcase in Stockholm, and it will be the first time that you actually see LGBT performers from Uganda perform internationally.